it live. All right, so again, welcome. We have our panelists here, Josh, Erin, Bill, and Scott. I know that we have one or two others that may be joining us momentarily if they're able to get the technical side on their end. So what I've asked each of our panelists to present to us today is one or two things that they've done in the culture of their organization, specifically to incorporate remote work into the culture of their companies. So whether that's a takeaway of like we did this event or we created this policy, each one of are going to be sharing from their own perspective one of those takeaways. And then what I'd ask everyone to do is use either the chat or the Q&A in the white box in your display there to put in your questions, and then I will make sure to address those after everyone has an opportunity to present. And with that, Josh, you're first up on my visualization of my tiles, so I'm going to have you go first.
Okay, can you hear me? Can everyone hear me? Awesome. Yeah, so I guess I'll just introduce myself. I'm Josh Olofson with Traeger Grills here in the HR team. Yeah, this was definitely a surprise, I think, for everybody, right? Like, I don't think any of us ever anticipated having to go through something like this. And at Traeger, you know, we feel, and I know most companies feel like they have a really strong culture. And when this situation happens, we really, one of the first things we did with the executive team is we sat down and we talked about ways to protect our culture, because it is such a huge part of who we are and what we do. And there were a number of initiatives that we really felt like we had to continue on in order to keep up the spirits of our employees and also to protect that culture that's so important to us. And one of the things that's really big for us as a company is we have a company all meeting every Monday morning, complete with food cooked by our culinary team, which is incredible. And it was something that we as a company, we really cherished, coming together every single Monday morning around some good food. And we hit on key topics within the business that day or that morning. And so that was one thing that we didn't want to lose. But then at the same time, we didn't know how we could keep that going in this environment. And so we came up with this idea of having a morning talk show, so to speak. And we created it's called Good Morning Traeger. And our CEO, we've decked out his office complete with a desk. We have a DJ behind him playing music, because we always have music at our Monday morning meetings. And we do it virtually via Microsoft Teams. And I think I have a slide here to kind of give you a little sense of what that looks like. I hope, can everybody see that? So yeah, it's really cool. They've created a logo and everything, and we have a cool desk with our CEO and a microphone and the DJ in the background. And we try to keep it high energy, because that's what it is on a normal week at our company. And so we want to make sure that we create that continuity of normalcy that we're losing, you know, having to work from home. And so this has been a really fun opportunity to kind of think outside of the box to keep some of our cultural initiatives moving along. You know, the other thing that we've done, you know, again, to keep some of our culture intact, you know, one of our company motto is bringing people together to create a more flavorful world. And we really believe that at Traeger. That's why we provide company provided lunches and meals. That's why we do a lot of internal cooking contests and a lot of different initiatives. One thing that we usually did on a yearly basis that we obviously haven't had a chance to do this year is we used to do March Madness games and tournaments and things that we just, obviously with March Madness being canceled, we didn't have time for. And so we came together as a team and created what we're calling internally Meat Madness, where we're going to have weekly competitions with our employees cooking on the grill. So like this Monday's challenge is going to be cook a meal for 4 to 6 people using 5 ingredients on your Traeger. We did this because we want to keep a sense of community within our employees, and we also want to keep the eye on our culture, which is the focus of our product. And so we want to we wanted to find a way to infuse those two objectives together. And so we're really excited to roll this out and to keep our employees Traegering on and having that sense of community and sense of togetherness that's so critical to our culture. And so we've done a number of other things. I don't want to bore you guys, like with pulse feedback surveys, and we continued on our give back initiatives remotely. But there are a lot of things that you can do it's a great time as an HR team to come together and to think creatively and to think outside of the box. And I'm hoping that what we have done for our company resonates with our employees and keeps us strong during this time.
That's awesome. Thanks, Josh. And that's actually your screenshot there of what you did with your morning show was what made me reach out. I know we're good friends, but I saw that and I was like, that's so cool. I wish every company had the resources to do that. But even just making it your own, not everybody has the ability and financial means to do that or even time, but find something like that is true to who you are and allows you to continue your culture and connection in a time where people are working remotely. All right, Erin, you are next on my title screen, so I'll let you unmute and go ahead and share.
Great. Are you able to hear me first? Because it just gave me a warning. Okay, great. So our company has actually been virtual from the start. So we've had to develop culture from the ground up in a virtual setting. So, some of the things that we do, I wish we had a budget like Traeger. That would be fantastic. Those look like fun. So I'll try to think creatively outside the box. But some of the things that we do here, to create our culture and to help build on it are similar things, but infusing the personality of our company into a lot of what we do. And even the little things like we use Slack, which I think a lot of people are using these days, but as a communication tool. And we have different channels in there that are geared more towards culture than serious business. So, if somebody runs across a funny joke, we throw that up there to get a little chuckle in the middle of the day. And it's amazing how much that will take off. One person will throw it up. The next thing you know, the entire team has chimed in either with reactions or jokes or whatever. And so we've encouraged that kind of almost what we call our water cooler talk throughout the day to just continue to happen using whatever platform, you have. So for us, it's Slack, and for other companies, it might be other things. We'll do impromptu meetings on Zoom because we find the face-to-face really helps strengthen that connection, and not to just rely on things like email and text messages, but to use the video conferencing tools that you have available. And even for little things, that they don't have to always be the more formal meetings that you have every week. It can be for a quick check-in, a quick question that someone might have of another colleague, the same kind of ideas if you were next door to each other in an office and you're just popping in for a quick question. So we encourage that. It starts from leadership. I think, you have to model it. So if our clients tend to be very small businesses, so we encourage our owners to participate in these things and to even be the initiator, because then that gives permission for the rest of the team to follow suit. And that's pretty important. We also are starting, especially in this kind of crazy world, even though we're typically virtual, people in our company also can't go out and do the things that they normally can do. So how can we just help create a sense of sanity through this? So we've instituted a book club and a movie club in our company. And, these are things we can do at home and we can all do them sort of together. So we all will pick a movie and make sure we watch it by a certain date. And then we get together and just chat about the movie. So that's been very fun. And I think the importance for those people who haven't gone virtual before, and this is, new to them, is maintaining the, regular drum beats or your regular meeting schedule, making sure that you maintain that structure that you already had and try to mimic it as best you can in this virtual setting. So we also have weekly meetings like Josh has. And then we also have, daily meetings with just quick check-ins that take about 10 minutes. And those are really important for that connection. So don't let those things go. Just figure out the best way you can to maintain that sort of what we call a regular drumbeat schedule. And then the other thing was appreciation. I really thought about that. It's, especially right now, everybody's kind of panicked and worried and not sure what's going to happen. And I've learned as a leader of our team how to show my appreciation to people in a way that is personal and authentic and yet virtual. You know, I can't take them to lunch. I can't take them out to a cup of coffee. You know, so what ways can I still show my appreciation? And right now, I think people probably need that more than anything, you know, especially as we adjust to this new way of working and how hard it can be, especially if little ones at home, or, you know, if there's a lot of disruption going on, and people are really trying hard to make this work. So showing that appreciation and figuring out virtual ways to do that, whether it's sending a little gift, just sending a message to them directly, giving them a call, leaving a voicemail, you know, just whatever, but do what you can to show that appreciation is also important right now. Don't let that go.
Awesome. Erin, thank you so much. I think that's so valuable, and I appreciate that you're looking at it from the lens of somebody that has done this from the beginning and managing the changes of what you're experiencing with the disruption now, and how that potentially could look a little different from how you've done it previously. So thank you for that perspective. Bill, you are next on my tile list, and just an aside, I want to welcome JD. Thanks for popping in. Glad that you were able to make it work. I'll go ahead and turn the reins over to Bill, and we'll let him share.
Well, I thank you for having me. And for me, it's a little bit of a different perspective because I've worked from the home since 1990 in my business. I'm recruiterguy.com, and I'm a recruiting consultant. So I work with my clients, and it's a different model than probably any other recruiter that you know. I work with one company at a time, and I charge a flat monthly fee. So that enables me to sit down and really spend time with my clients and get to know them and train them as well as recruit for them. One thing that's really important during this time is very few of the people who are now working from home have ever worked from home before. And when I'm training my clients on how to be able to get a workforce and help them be effective, I go through a list of tips, and some of you who follow me on LinkedIn and on Twitter have seen some of my tips. But so I think would be valuable right here, right now, is to go through some of the tips that I give the employee side. One of them I found out early on was that I needed to have a place that was totally my business. I tried to do it on the kitchen table, and that didn't work because every time we had a meal, I had to move everything. And then I tried to do it on a living room table, but then somebody wanted to watch television, so that didn't work so well. And at the time, we were living in a mobile home, so we had 900 square feet. So I totally understand people who are in apartments and saying, but where do I go? If you have a corner in a living room where you can put a table and a phone and have your internet connection, do it there. If you have the luxury of an unused bedroom, that's even better. What I learned through my experience, though, and it was a mistake I made, was I was carrying my business stuff and dropping some on the kitchen table, some of it in the bedroom. I didn't do like that viral Zoom thing that I helped pass out the other day, or distribute the other day, where poor Jennifer took her laptop while on a Zoom conference into the bathroom, and you can imagine what happened. They said poor Jennifer during it, and one person was in a car and didn't know what happened and kept asking what happened. So advice there, don't take your laptop into the bathroom thinking you were going to listen in, because if you're on a video conference, it would not go well. The other thing that I found, though, by taking things throughout my house, was I never left my job. There was some reminders of my job everywhere I went, and we can't function that way. We can't always be on our job. So I suggest to people, especially if they've got a room that they can shut the door, my practice is when I shut the door, I formally say the international offices of recruiterguy.com are now closed for the day. And that just helps my mind get away from it. Something else that's really important is to mirror your manager's communication style, because they have their own preferences. It might be texting, it might be Zoom video conference, or Worktopia video conference. Sorry, guys. Or Skype. It doesn't matter. Or it can be just pick up the phone. It might be emails. Mirror your manager's style for communication. That's very important. At the same time, though, remember that electronic communications, whether they are text or if they're email, they strip out the emotion and tone of the sender, and then the person receiving it now attributes their own emotion and tone to it. And that's not always good. I've seen lots of times people go, "She said what?" And now we've got an email battle going on, and the person that sent it, there was not that intention at all. So kind of keep that in mind. This disruption for everybody who's working from home right now could also be an opportunity. And it's an opportunity to demonstrate your resilience. Be confident out there. Demonstrate that you have the ability to work by yourself, get things done by yourself. And oh, by the way, you're not commuting. When I started working by myself in and out of my house, my company was an hour away. So that was 2 hours a day that I was commuting, which is 10 hours per week, which is 40 hours per month that I was spending on the road. One work week I was spending on the road going back and forth to work. And now I had all of that time to me and to my business. So take advantage of that while you've got it. With the clients on the manager side, we have to train our managers on how to work with remote workers, because a lot of them have never done that before. And so I coach the companies, my clients, to coach their managers to keep in mind that these people, this is a real difference for them. And for some of them, they really take it hard. So it's important to do what Josh and Erin suggested, have moments either in an afternoon, and that's where I suggested, where it's a 10-minute call, and those 10-minute calls or 15-minute calls can be just, "Hey, just wanted to touch base. We got everybody together. How's it going? Are we doing what we need to do? I heard this joke today," and just make it light. And draw everybody in, because everybody wants to be a part of their company. They want to be a member of what's going on. And then finally, prioritize your tasks, both from the manager's perspective and then also the worker's perspective. Identify what needs to be done during prime time, and that's your normal work time when you can reach out, and it can be customer support, it can be accounting, it can be questioning other people in the organization. That's prime time. Anything else can wait until later. And so know what's prime time tasks, what can be done later. And then finally, and this was really important, honor thy spouse's / roommate's workspace and time. If you have recreation activities that you want to do, but they're working different hours, respect their time and respect their space. So go out there, have some fun doing this, and you'll be much, much, much more successful. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. That was awesome. Grant even mentioned in there, I know that this is something that he cares a lot about, is taking that, the emotion to digital communication. And I think that you addressed that really well with some of your insights. So thank you for that. All right, Scott, you are up on my tile list. Go ahead.
Hey, everybody, just to get a thumbs up. Can you hear me? Okay, good. So thanks for the opportunity to share what's working and what doesn't work when it comes to, at least from my perspective, making sure that we are engaged with our employees, irrespective of where they're working. So just a little bit of background on me and the environment that I'm working in right now. So I work for a company, 700 employees. located across 22 different states, all 4 time zones. And so one of the things that is really, really critical for me when I think about how do we manage kind of this environment is how do we make sure that the experience that someone has at the beginning of their day on the East Coast at 8 o'clock is very similar to 8 o'clock on the West Coast. And how do you make it work with all the time shifting in place? Because, if you have us that are in Mountain Time Zone, if we're having our kickoff call at 9 o'clock in the morning, it's really a call on the East Coast of, hey, as you're winding down your morning, get ready for lunch. So the first thing that I would keep in mind is just as you're trying to communicate, just be very aware of the time zone differences between the different locations that you're trying to connect with. Because again, to build to your comments, it's very important to respect people's start of day, lunch period, and end of day. Because I don't know about you, how many times have you been scheduled, someone East Coast time, West Coast time before your day started, as you had lunch, that midday break, halftime that I like to call it, or end of day. And I think it's a little bit disrespectful because you're focused more on you than on the other side of the people that are attending. So awareness of time zones, super, super important. Second thing is trying to make that remote experience as much as possible as an in-office experience. One of the things that we've done this year that I'm really happy about is for all of our remote employees, we actually have taken over their home or the screen that they launch the internet to. So say, for example, if you set up, launch whatever, Internet Explorer, Chrome, whatever, many employees essentially are being welcomed by Google or welcome to CNN, because that's the first screen that they wake up to, or that's the first screen they see when they log on at the beginning of the day. So earlier this year, we took over the homepage of essentially everyone's wake up screen or welcome to work screen. So they see welcome to work. And we've got, we've done a pretty good job building out our intranet. But basically at the beginning of each day, what they see at the front is essentially welcome to work. There's, in some instances, some news that has come out from the business. It's been very valuable because we've had a coronavirus update, what we're doing to make sure that our employees are healthy, what's a benefit. But to kind of keep it fun and light, we've also got a widget there that is kind of the YouTube or meme of the day. And it creates some fun for people to kind of check in what's trending within the company, what's funny, what's a cartoon, what's something that can kind of be fodder to talk about during the day. So anyway, creating that in-office experience for our remote workers by making sure that when they wake up, they're welcomed by our company, not Google, not Facebook, not Twitter, whatever it is that you would normally launch on your personal computer. So that's been pretty important.
Scott, sorry to jump in here, but we had a question on the chat box. Are you able to share your screen and show us what that looks like?
You know what? I will.
Up at the top, there's a little plus sign next to cameras and slides for you to be able to share screen if you're able. I don't know if it's a confidential thing that you're not able to share it or not, but I think it would be interesting for the audience to see what that looks like.
Okay, can you see it?
Yeah.
Okay, let me refresh it up at the top. So this is essentially what we've created. So this is the welcome screen for everyone at the beginning of their day. So we call it MetaSource Connect. We've got information across the top. And by the way, this is we've used a Microsoft, we use a Microsoft platform here. So this is just SharePoint. We've got a remote worker guide, what's happening in the news, people, culture, and then our coronavirus update, as well as just kind of live things that are happening.
That's awesome. Thank you. And I'm sorry I interrupted you there, but go ahead and continue on with your thoughts.
No, that's okay. Also, one of the things that we have along the top is we use Microsoft Teams pretty extensively. And so we also have a personalized area where our employees can come in. Let's think if it will load. So we have our Microsoft channels that everyone is involved in. I'm going to close that because I know some stuff's coming through. Okay, I'm not sharing my screen anymore, right? Okay, good. So anyway, what we try to do is create that experience for employees when they come to work. Welcome to work, wherever they're at, whatever the location. One of the things that we teach during our leadership training courses is that every employee should have 3 connections during the day: a good morning, and enjoy your lunch, or did you get lunch, depending on where you connect them, but a connection at midday, and at the end of the day, thanks for all of your work today. Disconnect, enjoy your family, and we can't wait to see you tomorrow. And again, that's time shifted depending on the time zone, and it's been super important just that employees know that we're there together at the beginning of the day, and at the end of the day, we expect them to turn off and enjoy life with their family. Let's see. I think everything else has actually been touched on already, so I will pass the baton to whoever's next.
Thank you, Scott. That was awesome. I appreciate you sharing your screen with us too. And I know a lot of organizations use SharePoint, or even there's been a lot of discussion about Teams and all these different tech platforms that are out there, and building a landing page. I mean, good grief, you can go out and get a domain for about $20 a year if you really wanted to, and get crafty and learn some developer coding skills. So JD, I see a black screen, but you've been on. There you are with your beautiful bamboo HR sign behind you. So I'm going to pass to you and let you share some of what you guys are doing. And just context-wise, just so you know, I'd asked JD specifically. They were able to really adapt and turn on a dime with digitizing and virtualizing their onboarding process that I think is cool, really, really cool. And I know that's been a hiccup for a lot of HR professionals in understanding, like, we're still hiring. Like, what do we do to continue to hire people and engage them and onboard and train them and get them up to speed when we can't see them and we can't have them in the office? So I don't know how much of that he's able to share, but that's the context of specifically where I think JD and his team can provide value. And I'm sure he has a billion other ideas, because Bamboo does a great job with managing the remote work experience. So with that, JD, take us away.
Thank you. Ironically, I knew I do a lot of work from home already, and I picked this up from a company meeting a while ago. I was like, "Are you guys throwing that away? I'm going to snag that. I mean, this is what this is here at my house." So I think Bill talked about dedicated workspaces. Great comments today. I wrote down a few things that were just very cool insights. So I hope everyone's listening keenly. A few things that I wanted to point out is as Elisa talked about, is starting well when you're onboarding someone else. It took a lot of time for us to plan quickly and pivot. We knew it was worth the time to push off other things. So members of our team, we immediately broke up into different collaborative groups. We had great names from task forces and strike teams and guilds and stuff like that, in order to make sure who is in charge of communicating these things to candidates, these things to those who are about to start, like new items. Hey, here's how onboarding is going to change. Who's in charge of communicating this stuff to managers? So quickly divvy out and have a unified communication plan was one of the first things that we did. Off the bat, though, in any onboarding scenario, I'm really passionate about it. So please forgive my animation. I just get, this is where I believe companies really miss a great opportunity for employees to establish strong relationships and work identities that allow them to be successful. An example is, as managers, we can help people identify their strengths quickly and play to their strengths, and help them establish an identity of success in their first 90 days. And it starts out by having a unique experience that is very relationship oriented. That's where first most people are trying to acclimate to a new company environment and culture is, who are these people? How do I fit in? And it's subconscious much of the time. A lot of times they're like, no, I just want to get to work. Okay, yes, but part of the reasons for that is we understand there are these muddy waters of perception and how do things work on a regular basis? How are we perceived? We're humans, that comes along with the territory sometimes. So it's important to establish relationships right off the bat. And one of the things, our shameless plug, but one of the reasons why I loved joining Bamboo several years ago is their focus on quality onboarding. We have digitized onboarding that you can sign your paperwork and get to know certain things about the company. We've created a candidate experience where people are educated more about the company, so it's an easier acclimation, even in times of virtual transition. In fact, we're at 600 employees right now, and we already had a large, I would say close to a third of our workforce has been remote or work from home. Even if they've done training in the office, they will then transition to permanent work from home. And our pivot included, okay, we already have a lot of these things in place, and I don't want that to be taken for granted to everybody listening in and watching this today. There are things that we should spend the time on, and it's okay to spend the time on. I just started onboarding a new recruiter 4 days ago, and in this transition time frame, I made sure the first day was a half-hour block of time just to meet and greet this team, just for them to talk about what they do and ask get to know you questions. I teed them up on those things as well. What are some things you're going to want to know about them? So having structured time for that is okay. And it's hard when we're in a rush and we just need somebody to come in and make a quick impact in their job, because we're going through labor starvation sometimes when we're hiring. Just need the help. Take the time. It's worth the time. They can get acclimated. It solves problems that come up 3 months down the road, 6 months down the road, and it can solve retention issues if your company has them. So establishing those relationships, there are so many numerous tools and all these really cool ideas that I've already heard from fellow panelists today. Real quick list, we use Yammer as an internal site where people can build areas to bond over different things. We've built something called Panda Connections, affectionate, Panda and Bamboo. Anyway, Panda Connections, just basically here are all the people that go and play volleyball at lunch. Okay, that isn't happening. What are all the other things that people are doing? The people that play games at lunch, how can you join that? How do you have, not a Sherpa, but somebody that can introduce you to all of that? That's part of our onboarding. We use some other simplistic things. So we just use GChat. We have Slack for some other things, but we just use GChat, and we can structure quite a lot and make quite a lot happen and have clarity as to which ones are used for which things and which ones, to be honest, sometimes you can snooze and then say, we like to check these twice a day, and or just when you need a moment to go catch up on what's going on, right? But the time to make these introductions and give a lot of clarity, I'll say with my team, I made sure that all of us on our calendars talked a lot about hours earlier and when to schedule certain things. I immediately asked my entire team to show their office hours, because I don't need them from 7 to 4 every single day, but I need them day to day. I need for us to know when they can contact them. And on that calendar invite is on that calendar that anyone can view is automatically a virtual room established. So people will ask me a question on GChat and I'll say, yep, just pop into my work from home. We're there really fast. And it's as if you're just turning over to the person next to you. There's other ways to building collaboration that we've done with projects. So we've specifically decided to, and I hope everyone listening considers changing how you get work done. Before, you can have a lot of individual contributors and it works very well. Well, now we've created smaller groups of stakeholders and collaboration groups to ensure that people are working on something together, even if they don't need a constant contact with somebody. We'll have an established hour for that time frame that the lead on that project set up. And sometimes you just check in at the very beginning, and then you turn off your camera, mute your microphone, and go to work. But as soon as somebody has a question, they unmute and it notifies everyone else, and it's like turning over to the team. So there are very little things you can do. I invite you to be deliberate about your structure. As far as other onboarding things or items to personalize it, there are small things that make a big impact. And it really has to do with what you've planned to do. With our new recruiter that just started, we just all Venmo'd to each other and ordered crumble cookies to be at his house by the time he got home from the introduction onboarding piece. We still have some people that are able to come in, and it's safe to come in to go over benefits or things like that. So there are little things you can do throughout the day. We have team lunches throughout the first week and second week where we're all just eating together and then talking. It's okay to disconnect about other things. So I know that's been alluded to or talked about from other panelists, and I hope it's generating just a lot of ideas. One last point, I guess I'll say, I'm just giving you a lot of slew of ideas, and do ask me questions if needed in the Q&A here. But structuring the time takes time. And so we've basically made a whole development council on it. And I've asked a representative from each of our squads to be on a council that we call the team of teams. And this team of teams, their entire job is to keep track of everyone. How is everyone doing? Like, hey, I think somebody else on our team is going through a rough time. They're open with the fact that, that they had to take their dog to the vet or something like that. Just little things that we can do to keep in contact and be thoughtful of each other. It's not just the manager. It's not just one person. It's a representative from each team. And these are people that already really care. And they know how to keep their distance from some of us who are like, I'm fine. I'm good. Don't get in my space. But they know how to balance that. They have very high EQ. And that's part of the reason why they're on the team of teams, to plan for all of these considerations. New hire starts, lunches, ways that squads, smaller groups, and larger teams can get together and bond, making sure there are other communication channels open, and making sure that every time there's a work anniversary and every time that there's a birthday, that something thoughtful happened and all of us contributed to that. So that's what I would say. Just a few ideas. Hope that helps.
Just a few. I mean, it's not like we're writing a Bible or anything.
I'm machine gunned everything at you. I'm really sorry. I'm sorry.
I know. Me too. I'm like, my hands look giant compared to my face. Okay, thank you so much, JD. That's awesome. And everybody, I feel like I know a lot about this space, and I have learned so much from listening to all of you. And of course, we have our little peanut gallery going in the chat over there. So I hope everybody is paying attention to that, because there's some good stuff happening. Okay, so there were a couple of questions. I'd asked a question earlier, and I'd be interested. We don't necessarily have to hear from everyone, but those that have had remote work prior to this, I'm curious to know, do you provide the equipment for your employees, or is there an expectation that they provide their own in setting those expectations up front?
Lisa, we provide our own, and employees don't provide it. The company provides it for them. We check that in pre-onboarding, and either we can bring it to their home if there's a concern of health, or they can come and check it themselves and pick it up on the day if you other people, and then picking hands and then go.
Bill, can you mute your microphone for just 1 second? It's causing an echo, but we'll make sure that you go right after JD. Thank you. Bill, let's go ahead hear from you, and then Erin, you've got something to add, and Scott, if you want to go after that, if you have something as well.
So with my clients, they always provide the equipment, and then they have an agreement signed during onboarding. And many times, my most recent client was a cybersecurity firm that had remote workers all over the United States, actually all over the world. And many times they received their equipment even days after they assigned their offer letter accepting. So I think most companies will want to supply the equipment, and then what that does is enables them to guarantee the quality, and at the same time, at the end, any IP that belongs to the company will go back to them.
So I'll just add just maybe a little different view. So we do not provide the technology for our employees to use. Rather, we provide a technology reimbursement or an allowance, depending on which group you're in. But then all of the work that they do, they remote essentially into the work environment. And then from there, it's very, very locked down so that we're not, IP is essentially inside the firewall. And the only way to get in there is, portal, essentially getting granted access into kind of the gateway into our into our world. And I know that that's very similar actually to what they do down at Goldman Sachs downtown, Salt Lake City, where employees are essentially working on very minimal desktops outside of the workplace, but they remote in and work off of those platforms.
Awesome, thank you. And then Erin, I think you had something to add as well.
Yeah, well, we're a very small team and again, work with small businesses. So we actually do not provide the main technology like the computer, but because we do person to person sort of video interviews, we do provide the camera and the microphone because we do want that control over the quality. And we obviously give lots of guidelines about the environment and what's behind people and, things like that, because if they're in interviews, we don't want to be hearing, having a cat walk across the desk or something like that. But the actual laptops and things we don't. As we grow, it's something that we're looking into, would hopefully do. But, I know a lot of small businesses just can't afford it. So I don't know that it's necessarily required these days, but that's what we do here.
Cool, thank you. So Karen Johnson asked a question in the chat. Her question is, when COVID ends, do you anticipate switching back to the office or will there remain work from home professionals? So this would be, I would love to hear from those that maybe didn't have it previously, but have been thrown into figuring this out. But if everybody was doing work from home previously, let's hear from all of you with your thoughts. Josh, I think you raised your hand with something to say. Let's start with you.
Yeah. We've done a number of surveys just asking people, making sure that they're having a good experience working from home, that they have all the tools that they need to work from home well, and communication's going well. And through our surveys, we have been stunned to hear how well our teams have been connected. And we've gotten comments from leaders that have said back to us, we have never been this connected to our teams before. And I think it's because a lot of the day-to-day distractions in the office, people coming in and taking up time, and I think they've had more time to kind of focus in and narrow down on their teams and finding out, what they're actually working on, because it's so critical for us to know what they're working on right now because we don't have those daily interactions. And so, we've had some internal conversations with the executive team about this, about, how stunned we are that how efficient our teams have been. I mean, we believe in our people, obviously, but we were just, we felt like there was going to be some steps back as we rolled this out. And so we actually are having internal discussions about possibly like doing 4-day weeks moving forward in the office. During the summers last year, we did half-day Fridays in the office. And so that might become a full thing where we do work from home Fridays because of how well and how seamless this transition has been for our team.
That's excellent, thank you. Mickey is apparently getting heart-shaped goosebumps with that comment, which makes me very happy. Scott, it looks like you've unmuted. Do you have something to add?
Yeah. So we normally we had about 30% of our employees working at home, 70% in the office, and we've shifted. I think we're now at like 80-20, something close to that. And one of the things that in my conversations with our CFO, one of the things that's been really revealing about this whole experience is that we've always been prepared from a business continuity perspective to go down this road. We've made heavy investments in our technology, but what happened is we didn't offset that investment on the real estate side. And so we had we've got big office spaces with very few people that work there. And so one of the things that we're talking about is that we don't anticipate that we'll fully swing all the way back, but that we do feel like, you know what, this is an opportunity for us to push more ROI out of our technology investment by reducing the amount of expense on the real estate side. And so, that's just starting right now. And I think it's, more to come, but we're seeing that the payoff is not just going to be from an employee perspective, but hard dollars as it relates to just shrinking our real estate footprint, because we simply don't need it anymore if we continue to go down this road of allowing essentially more employees to work from home, and then having more common spaces for them to come in and work in, versus having everyone have their unique space when they do come in. So for example, I sit at our corporate office in Draper, and there has been discussions around, do we create an environment where the HR team is in office, and we have kind of HR is on Monday, legal is on Tuesday, accounting and finance is Wednesday, and whatever other group. So we rotate through and do desk sharing, and then the rest of the time we work from home. So we have the face-to-face connection, but we're saving on the real estate side. But those conversations are just really getting started right now.
I just love that it looked like we were booing you, Mickey. I love it. We're like, down with Mickey's entrance. This is great. Well, are you guys okay with me sounding off for a second?
Yeah, go for it.
Take it
Great.
away.
Thank you, Erin, Scott. I appreciate the support. No, our transition. I was thinking about adding this, but had so much of a Bible to throw at everyone earlier. But our transition has actually been really helpful to us right now. This situation, it's difficult for a lot of people in their personal lives, but as a company, I believe it's actually helped us acclimate to more efficient working from home, so it's more easily done and juggled in the future. And that's we were in a spot where we're highly centralized. We have remote or telecommute workers all throughout the state, and a few in some other states as well. But we're generally a lot more highly centralized, but this empowers a lot more clarity around how to build those connections. And as far as our real estate goes, I love the insights that Scott was talking about, because there are a lot of ways that you can look at saving office space or being thoughtful about how it's designed. And we're actually in the middle of doing that. We expanded into the building next to us on top of our headquarters, and we are expanding into another building. So we were running a little bit behind as far as office space, and we were a little worried about that. And we go, okay, now we have time to plan ahead for it, and we have an entire workforce that can adapt more easily to working from home, even as some things do transition back. So take advantage of the good times, of the good aspects of a difficult time.
JD, thank you. And can everybody hear me? Are we good? Okay, great. Well, hey everybody, I'm Grant from the dust coming in here. One more question before we wrap up. We've got about 10 minutes left, and a question about that we've had as a team here at Nimble, and things that we've kind of been working through is what do you all do to help your employees really separate or prevent work from bleeding into home and home from bleeding into work? I know we talked a little bit about physical space, but there's so much more to that. And I was wondering if anybody could share maybe a little bit more there, because I think for new remote employees coming in, that bleed can be pretty big and it can be pretty upsetting. So any thoughts around that space?
You guys hear me?
Yeah.
Grant, there you go. There's a, I think your phone is making an echo. There we go. Thank you. I don't know why it does that, but that is a really challenging one. I have to admit, it takes so much I think it has to come from the self. You can provide guidelines and you can provide advice, but in the end, at least for me and for my team, we all have to take the responsibility ourselves to create boundaries and create the guidelines within our families and our personal lives and stick to them. The good, what you can do as a leader, I think, is not expect people to be there all the time, and to be very careful. I'm in the West or the East Coast, and I have employees all the way through the country, the West Coast. And so, at a certain time in the morning, I'm ready and raring to go, and I might want to text one of my employees on the West Coast. So we've come up with an internal policy of how we will communicate and what's considered urgent and not urgent and which platforms we will use. So if it is not urgent, but I still need to get my thought out, I'll put it in Slack. If it is absolutely time sensitive urgent, I will actually text you on your phone. So and then the flip side, they know the same thing for me. They can text me when it's only 4:00 there, it's 7:00 here, I'm done. But if it's super urgent, they can text me. If otherwise, I turn off notifications on Slack and everybody. So we're really good at respecting those boundaries and making sure we communicate them ahead of time. But then in terms of just like in your own space, it's going to have to come from, yourself or, and just really encourage people to be very strong about them and to not let it bleed. That's kind of how we deal with it. Hopefully that was helpful.
One of the points that I make to people who are working from home, especially for the first time, is make sure you tell your children, if you've got a bedroom or that you can create an office, let your children know that when you shut that door, that means you've gone to work. What I did learn, though, from our Labrador Retriever was that doesn't count for her. And so she would scratch on the door until I finally opened the door and let her in. So dogs get a special pass, and generally they just sleep down on the floor. But with your children and your spouse, it's good for them to just understand that, hey, when the door is shut, I've got a meeting going on, and I can't have any interruptions. And you might have a couple of oops, but very quickly they'll learn to respect that time.
Yeah, go for it, Josh. Thanks, Bill.
Yeah, I just to echo what everyone's just said there. I think as for those of us that are in HR or over our talent, I think it's important, kind of to what Bill was talking about, what Erin was talking about, and even what JD was talking about earlier, is understanding that everybody's situation is different, right? Like, you have to be willing to talk to your team and be willing to work around what their situation is, right? Like, Bill, it's a great suggestion, but for me, that doesn't work because my wife is still at her office and I have a 3-year-old son that doesn't understand the door's closed, I'm working, right? Like, all he understands is dad's home and I want to climb all over him, right? And I think it's important for all of us to know that, right? Like, we have a lot of single mothers on our team. We have a lot of, different situations where some people have like 4 or 5 kids at home. And so I think it's important as a leadership team to first communicate what everybody's situation is, and then find best solutions for your teams. Kind of what JD was talking about earlier is, setting those blocks of times like, hey, I put my son down for a nap from 2 to 2:30, so I cannot be contacted between 2 and 3, right? And so as long as everyone's communicating and as long as everybody is understanding of different situations, I think it makes the transition to this new normal a lot smoother.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Josh. And I think it's really about finding opportunities to be there with your employees, right? Like, instead of like thinking from like a high level, like, we've got to make a policy for every single individual. It's about being with them. And then I think it's also about being a leader from the HR side and telling people of what they might experience, or if they are experiencing, here's some things that we've seen that help with that. Like, we've had a lot of good things that are been shared about maybe setting expectations with kids or even teammates. And so I think with a lot of people coming into this for the first time, those that have had experience, sharing that experience is kind of what I've been hearing as a theme, so that people can be aware that, oh my gosh, this is why I haven't been as focused anymore, is because I have all these new distractions. And it's okay, by the way, we're going to work through this kind of together. So really, really appreciate the comments there. It looks like Elisa's coming back on. Elisa, anything you want to kind of add right before we jump off?
Hey, Grant, if I can just add one thing. So one of the things that I think we need to take into consideration, particularly with this like rapid move of employees that move home, versus like Erin, where the move home has been very planned over time, is that I think we need to be very careful, particularly from a mental health perspective, that, employees oftentimes have got great, deep relationships with people at work, and to remove those so quickly, where one day you're with your team, with your kind of your work family, and there's consistency, and you know who you are, and you've got identity there. This shift home can be very, very disruptive for everyone. And so I think we need to be very, very aware of just the kind of the social and kind of mental health of this type of a rapid shift, where you go from one thing to the other, and not minimize that while we're trying to keep the business running, our customers happy, and so forth.
Awesome. Oh my gosh. Well, I'm overwhelmed. I'm exhausted. Even though I've had caffeine today, I am ready for a nap. So I am going to take advantage of my remote work opportunities and come back fully ready to work for the rest of the day. I really want to, panelists, I know a lot of you just jumped in last minute, some of you with literally hours notice to be a part of this, so I appreciate that. Also, just a reminder to our audience, this has been recorded, and so we'll make that available for you to go back and reference later on your own. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and end the session, and a huge thank you to all of the here and our presenters and panelists for being a part of this. Thank you guys so much, and man, let's take care.
Thanks all. Good luck to everyone.